Okay, good morning, everyone. I want to talk about why I think that the decline in the dollar value or the purchasing power of the United States dollar, the American dollar, is probably one of the biggest causes of stress and pain for us young people, us Gen Zers. And I want to talk about that, right? So I have this iPad here because I have notes to help me as I go through the video. So please forgive me if this format is a bit weird, but I think this way it'll allow me to at least like give you guys my points in a bit more structured way than what I normally do, right? So I feel as though Gen Z has been effectively priced out of ownership, priced out of ownership of a lot of assets that were once accessible to us because the dollar has lost so much of its purchasing power. And not only does that have to do with us not owning assets as young people, as Gen Zers, but that also has to do with us buying regular products and getting things that we need for our regular daily lives. So I want to look at this decline of the dollar from a bit of an unorthodox standpoint. And to give you guys a bit of context, I come from a very unorthodox family. So my father, believe it or not, is 84 years old, right? So when I was growing up, he would always tell me about how the dollar, or he was able to get a lot more things like steak dinners and shit for like $1 or 5 pennies or something. I'm exaggerating, but you get the point. So I want to use his age, 84 years old, or the year he was born, 1941, as the metric to compare to today, and just give you guys a few statistics, I think, that pretty much illustrate the point I'm trying to make in terms of how much the dollar has lost its value. Okay, so when you're looking at how much has the dollar lost, so I'm going to go through a few stats, like I said, and I'm going to just probably try to explain each one because they're a little bit different. So the first stat that I have here is that according to inflation data, $1 in the year my father was born, 1941, would have the purchasing power of $21.11 today. So this is translating to an average annual inflation of around 3.8%. So to start, we're going to just talk about the inflation part. This is the purest way that a dollar loses its value is by creation of more of that dollar. As they create more and more United States dollars and put them in their circulation, more people has these dollars or have those dollars. And as a result, the dollars that are existing are just going to go down in value. That's the basic principle of inflation, right? I think we all understand that. But I think it's important to point out inflation because not only is inflation something that's sort of natural to not necessarily, we can go deeper in that if we want to, but I want to point out how I think the government is making the inflation part of this entire equation even worse. Because as we all know, the government has been printing out money forever pretty much, but especially since COVID, since 2020, the year I graduated from high school, the government has been printing out, I think 40% of the cash or the M2 money supply that was ever printed was printed since 2020. And if that doesn't show you guys how, I guess, strung out the dollar is becoming, it should. And it's only going to get much worse. There's a lot going on in the stock market right now when it comes to gold and stock prices and cutting interest rates, which I probably should make another video about. But all of these things have to do with interest rates. And the government is only making our dollar weaker and weaker by printing out more money. So like I said, I don't think that inflation has to be explained, but I did want to explain why I think it's important. So for someone like my father, who didn't even come from the best background, the acquisition of assets for him was purely easier on a time scale simply because the dollars that he had a higher purchasing power. What do I mean by this? Because the dollar went further, the money you made as a worker went further. And even though they made less than we do on paper, the power of their wages were much higher than ours. This is the fundamental problem. It's not about the fact that my dad might have made $2 an hour and I make way more than that. That $2 an hour that he made probably is going further than the equivalent of that $2 an hour. And I'm going to get into the next point about how wages have not necessarily kept up with the prices of these assets now. So to compound this, like I said, the wages in which I'm referring to have not grown at rates anywhere near close to what the price of the same assets my father and our ancestors were able to afford, right? So this is effectively the problem in our society. And in my opinion, particularly here in America, amongst us young people, this is why it's so hard for us to acquire assets like cars, homes, even a degree. You can consider a degree an asset without going into debt, because the prices of these assets in relation to how much money we've been making as workers are completely disconnected. They're not one-to-one. So I want to give you guys some man-hour statistics to further drive home this point. So the man-hour stats are pretty much stats that I like to look at because I think, we get too caught up in looking at the number side of everything and like inflation percentages and just numbers in general, right? Which this is a number as well, but this is a number that's more related to how long you physically have to work rather than how much you have to make, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to just get right into it. So according to historical housing data from the 1940 U.S. Census, the median home price was about $2,938 in 1940, while the median annual income was about $1,368. So roughly 2.1 years of wages could buy a home. Now let's fast forward to today. According to the United States Census Bureau, the median home price is around $410,000, while the median annual income today is around $75,000. So if you do the same math, you need 5.5 years of wages compared to 2 years basically to afford the same median home. So like I said, you might be making more money than your mom and dad did in terms of how much you get paid on paper, but in terms of the power that that dollar has, you probably have less. And that's what I'm trying to get us to understand here. So in simple terms, in 1941, like I just said, a home cost just over 2 years of income, and today is going to cost you 5 to 6 years of income, nearly triple the labor time for the same asset. Then some boomer is going to comment, but you guys want bigger homes. Okay, let's even take that argument at face value really quick. We do not control the size of homes that are being built. People that are under the age of 20, let's say 30. Gen Z not even 30. Let's say like 27 and under. We're not controlling the sizes that these companies choose to build their developments at. They're only building them big because they know people can still get loans for these huge homes, which is another reason why the prices of these homes have gone up. Like I'm saying right now, the government is printing out money, weakening our dollar, and as a result, the assets that you use dollars to buy are only going to go up in price, bro. It's a simple formula to explain, I think, but people don't seem to understand it. Okay, so we're going to go with some more stats. So we're going to look at some stats for wages versus assets. It says here that according to the Bureau for Labor Statistics data, wages have grown about 40x since 1940, but the median home price has grown over 140x in the same time. So just look at that correlation, y'all. The amount of money that we get paid as workers has gone up about 40 times since my dad was born, right? Whereas the price of a home, just to make sure I'm reading this right, the median home price has increased by 140 times the original amount. So how is anybody expected to, even if you have... for the interruption, guys, we're going to continue talking about these stats. So going to the next stat here for rent. According to census data, the average rent in 1940, and this is going to sound crazy to me because I'm young, it was about $27 a month, which I probably should have verified this because I used ChatGPT to give me these stats before I did this video. But if that's true, and it says that today the average rent is $1,900 a month, that's honestly crazy to me. Like, what's the increase on that? And then lastly, I'm going to use this stat here talking about the price of college and how it's gone up substantially as well to drive my point home. And we're going to wrap the video up pretty much. So the average private college tuition was about $500 a year in 1940. Today, it's about $40,000 a year. Jesus, I should have read these stats thoroughly before I even made this video because this is like truly shocking to me. Like, I don't understand how the people in this world and the old people want to make us seem like we're the lazy generation and we don't want to work and we want it easy when we're literally at the most severe disadvantage of any group of people in history. The dollar is gonna damn near collapse soon, and people make it seem as though it's easy to just go out and get a job that pays well and affords you the luxuries of life that our ancestors once had, when that's simply not the case. So I hope this video made sense to you guys. I know this format is a bit different than what I normally do with the whiteboard, but if you liked it, please drop a like and comment if you agree with me. If you don't agree with me, still comment. Let me know what you think below. You know, the dollar, we have a lot of work to do, and I'm not even sure if the dollar will be around when I'm like 50, because the way it's looking right now, I probably won't. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, it's been your boy, Brandon Davis. I'm out.